It begins with a question that echoes through the soul of every seeker. What does it truly mean to be chosen? Not chosen by history, not chosen by politics or legacy or fame, but chosen by something ancient, something cosmic, something that speaks not in words but in frequencies. You feel it in your bones, don't you? That strange pull toward greatness that has nothing to do with ego and everything to do with destiny. You felt it in dreams, in moments of stillness, in the unexplainable synchronicities that seem to follow you around like whispers from another world. And maybe, just maybe, you've asked yourself if others have walked this path before you. Others who weren't just spiritual but activated. Others who weren't just wise but wired differently. Others who weren't just human but called. In this journey, we're going to explore the 5 most mysterious and powerful chosen ones of all time. But this isn't a history lesson. This is a mirror. Because every one of these beings is not just someone we look at in awe, they are archetypes. And those archetypes are alive in you. They awaken when you hear their names. They rise in your DNA when you hear their stories. Because you are not just watching this to be entertained. You are watching this to remember. You are here to awaken the chosen one within you. Let's begin where all great stories begin, in the silence before the storm. The first chosen one we must speak of is not the loudest. He didn't command armies. He didn't build temples. He didn't even write books. He sat. And in his stillness, the world changed. I'm talking about Siddhartha Gautama, the one we now call the Buddha. But before the Enlightenment, before the teachings that spread across centuries, there was a man who walked away from everything. A prince who had everything the world could offer: comfort, wealth, power, and gave it up because he felt something deeper calling him. Have you felt that? That moment where the life everyone wants you to live starts to feel like a cage? That's the first mark of the chosen. They walk away from what they're supposed to be and step into the unknown, the alone.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
Buddha didn't find enlightenment in a temple. He found it under a tree, after years of pain, hunger, doubt, and silence. He faced his inner demons, Mara, the tempter, not with violence, but with presence. And that's what made him powerful, not his mind, not his philosophy, but his refusal to look away from his own suffering. He sat with it. And in doing so, he unlocked a level of consciousness that still vibrates across the planet today. Now ask yourself, when was the last time you sat with your suffering instead of escaping it? What would happen if you stopped running from your pain and started listening to it? The second figure is perhaps more mysterious, more hidden in the folds of history. She's not always named, but she's felt. Her energy is woven through every sacred feminine archetype that has ever existed. She is known by many names: Isis, Inanna, Magdalene, but her presence is always the same. The divine feminine in her most awakened form. She is the one who remembers truth in a world of deception. The one who holds life and death in the same breath. In the healer, the priestess, the oracle. And she was never just one woman. She is a lineage, a frequency, a transmission that only the soul can translate. Mary Magdalene, in particular, is not who we were told she was. She was not just a follower. She was a keeper of sacred knowledge. She held the codes of resurrection. She anointed the Christ. She understood the mysteries of the body, the womb, the heart. And she was silenced not because she was weak, but because she was powerful. Does that sound familiar? How many times have you felt like your truth was too much for the world? How many times have you known something, felt something, seen something, and had no one to share it with? The second sign of the chosen is this: they carry wisdom that can't be taught in books. They remember things that were never told to them. They are coded to awaken others, and often they do it in silence, through energy, through presence, through love that transcends logic. The third chosen one was fire incarnate, a rebel, a prophet, a revolutionary of consciousness. He flipped the tables of temple corruption. He spoke in parables that confused the wise and woke the sleeping. He walked with outcasts. He healed with hands that knew suffering. And he died not because he was wrong, but because he was right too soon. You know who I'm talking about, Yeshua, the Christ, but not the version twisted by dogma. The real one. The one who said, "The kingdom of heaven is within you." The one who said, "You will do even greater things than I have." That's the third mark of a chosen one. They don't come to be worshipped. They come to activate others, and they often pay the price for their truth. Yeshua wasn't trying to start a religion. He was trying to break the veil, to show people that divinity wasn't in the sky, it was in their breath, in their choice, in their love. He taught frequency before science could catch up. He taught vibration before it was popular. And he taught that death wasn't the end, it was a doorway. If you've ever had to walk through a death of identity, a loss that shattered you, an ego collapse that stripped you bare, you've walked that path. The path of the mystic, the path of the resurrection. The chosen ones don't escape the cross, they transcend it. Now, the fourth chosen one is perhaps the most misunderstood. He didn't speak much. He didn't lead armies. He didn't start movements. But he was the embodiment of alignment. He lived in harmony with all things. He walked the Tao. He was Lao Tzu, the sage who wrote the Tao Te Ching, a book so simple, yet so infinite. His power wasn't in what he did, but in what he didn't do. He didn't force. He didn't strive. He flowed. And in that flow, he became the river. That's the fourth mark of the chosen. They don't dominate reality. They dance with it. Lao Tzu reminds us that real strength is in softness. That water, though gentle, can carve mountains. That the more we try to control life, the more it slips through our grasp. If you've ever felt the exhaustion of pushing too hard, trying too much, striving to become something you already are, you need the wisdom of Lao Tzu. Because chosen ones don't hustle their way to power. They surrender into it. They remember who they are, and then they let life express itself through them without resistance. And now, the fifth, the one that breaks the rules, the one that lives not in the past but in the future, the one that hasn't been written in history yet because it's you. Yes, you. You are the fifth chosen one, not because you've done what they've done, but because you're here watching this, feeling this, remembering this. You are the culmination of their frequencies. You carry the silence of Buddha, the sacred knowing of Magdalene, the fire of Christ, the flow of Lao Tzu. And now, the question is, what will you do with it? Because the fifth mark of the chosen one is this: they create the new myth. They don't just follow paths, they forge them. They don't just remember divinity, they embody it. They don't wait for the world to change, they become the change frequency itself. And that's what you're being called into now. Not to worship the old masters, but to become the next one. Not in ego, but in essence, in presence, in truth. So I ask you, what would your life look like if you fully accepted that you were chosen? What choices would you make differently? What habits would you release? What truth would you finally speak? What life would you begin to build, not as a reaction to the world's chaos, but as an invitation to its awakening? This is just the beginning. In the next part, we'll unlock the hidden spiritual technologies these chosen ones use: the energetic codes, the vibrational alignments, the mystical practices that allowed them to bend reality, transcend death, and awaken entire civilizations. And we will break down how you can activate those same codes in your own body, your own field, your own soul. There's a moment on every sacred path when you stop chasing knowledge and start remembering who you are. It's not about learning anymore, it's about decoding, unraveling, listening to something deeper than logic. And that's where we are now. We've seen the 5 chosen ones, 4 whose names echo through time, and the 5th, you. But what truly separated them from the rest of the world wasn't just their stories, or their sacrifices, or their wisdom. It was their codes, spiritual codes, energetic blueprints. Frequencies so ancient, so precise, that when activated, they didn't just change their lives, they changed the vibration of the entire planet. And those same codes, they exist in you, right now, right here. Not buried in a temple, not locked away in a scroll, not hidden in some distant dimension. They're in your breath, your cells, in your dreams, your pain. And this is the part where we stop observing the chosen ones and start becoming them. So what are these codes? And why are they forgotten? The truth is, they were never truly lost. They were muted, hidden under layers of fear, trauma, programming, and false identity. You weren't born disconnected. You were born aware, but you were taught to forget. Every time you were told to be quiet when your soul wanted to speak. Every time you were told to sit still when your spirit wanted to dance. Every time you were gaslit out of your intuition, your knowing, your sacred rage, you were being conditioned away from your codes. But they never left you. They simply went underground, waiting for the moment you would be brave enough to go looking for them. And now we go searching. The first code is stillness, not silence. Stillness. The kind of stillness that Buddha mastered under the Bodhi tree. The stillness that allows you to feel everything without reacting to anything. This is not passive. This is power. Because in stillness you stop leaking energy. You stop reacting to the world. You start observing it. And from that place you begin to understand that reality is not something happening to you, it's something responding to you. Stillness is the first code because it resets your frequency. Without it, you're just a receiver. With it, you become a transmitter. And when you transmit from stillness, the universe listens. The second code is embodiment. This is the Magdalene code, the code of the feminine mystic, the code of sacred presence. To embody doesn't mean to perform. It means to become undeniably real, to inhabit your body, your voice, your emotions, your truth without shame, without apology, without shrinking. Embodiment is what makes you magnetic. It's what turns your energy field into a living prayer. You felt it before, those moments when you were so fully yourself that the world seemed to bend around you. That's not luck. That's embodiment. And Magdalene knew how to do it in a world that punished women for having power. So ask yourself, where have you been disembodied? Where have you left your body in order to feel safe? To please others? To survive? And what would happen if you came back? The third code is resurrection, the Christ code. And this one is not metaphorical. It's energetic. Resurrection is the ability to die consciously, to let an identity, a belief, a relationship, a life chapter fully collapse and then rise again, not in spite of it, but because of it. This is the code that turns your pain into purpose, your breakdown into blueprint, your trauma into transmission. You don't need to avoid the cross. You need to transcend it. That means facing your shadow with your eyes wide open, letting go of who you thought you had to be, and allowing what's real to rise, no matter what it costs. Because resurrection is not about being saved, it's about choosing to rise after you've lost everything. The fourth code is flow, the Tao code, the Lao Tzu code, the ability to move with life instead of against it. This is the code of effortless power, the kind of power that doesn't need to control because it trusts. It trusts the unseen. It trusts the process. It trusts that every delay is divine, every detour is sacred, every contraction is preparing you for expansion. Flow doesn't mean you give up. It means you stop forcing. You stop trying to bend life to your will, and instead you align your will with something larger. This code requires humility. But in that humility, you find limitless strength. Because when you flow, you become the path. You become the water. And nothing can stop water when it's moving with purpose. The fifth code, the one most people never even attempt to unlock, is the code of co-creation. This is your code. The one that activates when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What was I born to build?" Co-creation is not manifestation. It's not about getting what you want. It's about becoming a clear enough channel that the universe can move through you without distortion. It's about building new realities through your presence, your choices, your creations. It's about using your voice, your art, your business, your parenting, your ritual, your life as a tool of transformation. You are not here to escape Earth. You are here to recode it, to reseed it with truth, to rebuild the frequency of the human experience. And that begins not with a vision board, but with a vibrational decision. You say, "I will no longer live from fear. I will no longer create from trauma. I will no longer doubt my knowing. I will be a vessel for the new." So how do you activate these codes? You stop asking for instructions, and you start making initiated choices. That means you don't wait until you feel ready. You don't wait until everyone understands. You don't wait until you have proof. You move, you speak, you leap, you become. You let stillness become your default. You let embodiment become your compass. You let resurrection become your rhythm. You let flow become your strategy. And you let co-creation become your leadership. And every time you do, you activate more of your spiritual DNA. You wake up the memory that's been sleeping in your cells. You feel it, don't you? Even now, your body responding. Oh, your field vibrating. Your soul whispering, yes, this is it. Because the truth is, these codes aren't just for monks and mystics. They're for you. Right here, right now, in your messy, beautiful, broken human life. These codes want to move through your heartbreak, your anxiety, your confusion, your creativity, your relationships. They want to live. And they can't do that if you keep waiting to become someone else. You don't need to become. You need to remember. You need to return. You need to stop trying to be worthy and realize you were designed for this. So now I ask you, what would it look like to live as if your codes were already activated? How would you walk into a room? How would you approach your work? How would you hold your pain? How would you speak to yourself? How would you lead others not from ego, but from embodied frequency? This is the moment where the chosen ones rise, not as saviors, but as examples, not as enlightened masters, but as embodied architects of the new world. And in the next part, we're going to go even deeper. We'll unravel the sacred trials every chosen one must pass through, the initiations of fire, water, air, earth, and ether. And the real ones, the ones no one talks about, the ones that strip you bare and then rebuild you with truth. And we'll explore how to navigate them without losing yourself and instead finding your soul all over again. There is something sacred that happens when you stop asking, "Why me?" and begin asking, "What now?" That shift, subtle, seismic, irreversible, is the moment when you stop seeing yourself as a victim of your awakening and start walking as a participant in your divine unfolding. And if you've made it this far, if you're still breathing in rhythm with these words, if your soul is vibrating with something ancient and almost unexplainable, then you've already stepped into the path of the chosen. And with that path, a new contract appears. One not written in ink, but in energy. Not signed with your name, but encoded in your DNA. That contract is this: you will face the 5 sacred initiations. Not because the universe wants to test you, but because the universe wants to refine you. Because every chosen one, Buddha, Magdalene, Yeshua, Lao Tzu, and now you has walked through these gates. And on the other side of each, not just survival but sovereignty. Let's begin with the initiation of fire. This is the burning, the collapse, the death of the false self. The moment when everything you thought you were, your stories, your roles, your plans, begin to disintegrate. It often looks like crisis, divorce, loss, sickness, identity collapse, but underneath the chaos is sacred intelligence. Fire does not burn what is real, it only burns what is artificial. This initiation is not here to destroy you. It's here to unmask you, to strip away every layer that was built from fear, people-pleasing, and survival. And yes, it hurts, it burns, it feels like the end. But it's the beginning. Because once the old has been reduced to ash, something new can emerge, not polished, not performative, but pure. The chosen ones who survive the fire become indestructible not because they're immune to pain, but because they've learned to find power inside it. The second is the initiation of water. This is the descent into emotion, intuition, and memory. After the fire, you're raw, open, exposed, and the waters rise not to drown you, but to cleanse you. This is when grief comes, when the tears you never cried begin to flow, when your heart cracks open not just for yourself, but for the collective. You begin to feel everything: ancestral pain, cosmic longing, the ache of the human condition. And if you resist it, you'll feel like you're drowning. But if you surrender to it, you'll begin to merge with your soul, with the earth, with the feminine. This is Magdalene's current. She walked this path. She knew that healing doesn't mean numbing your pain. It means feeling it so completely that it transforms into compassion, into wisdom, into power. The chosen ones who master water become the healers, the oracles, the empaths who hold space for the world without losing themselves. Next comes the initiation of air. This is the realm of thought, truth, and voice. After you've burned away the false and baptized yourself in emotion, you're ready to speak, to declare, to cut through illusion with the sword of your words. But this is also where you face the mental shadows: doubt, imposter syndrome, fear of being seen. You'll hear the echoes of every lie you were ever told about your worth. You'll question your sanity. You'll wonder if you're making it all up. And the only way through is truth. Not just spoken truth, but embodied truth. You speak what is real, even when your voice shakes. You write what's inside, even when no one reads it. You let your thoughts align with your soul, even when your mind wants to run. This is the Yeshua code: truth that liberates, truth that disrupts, truth that heals. And once you pass through this gate, your voice becomes a frequency weapon, not to harm, but to awaken. The fourth is the initiation of earth. This is where you ground your power. This is where embodiment becomes real. Because spiritual awakening means nothing if it doesn't change how you live. This initiation tests your ability to bring heaven to earth, not just in theory, but in practice. How do you treat your body? How do you show up in relationships? How do you handle money, time, service, energy? This initiation asks, can you walk your talk? Can you live your frequency in every room, not just in your meditation corner? Earth doesn't care about your visions. It cares about integration. This is the Lao Tzu code: simplicity, humility, presence. The chosen ones who pass this trial become the anchors of the new earth. They don't just dream it. They build it, brick by brick, breath by breath, with integrity. And finally, the most mysterious of all, the initiation of ether. This is the void, the space between, the silence where the ego dies and the soul expands. This is where you lose all sense of identity, all sense of timeline. You may feel invisible, forgotten, disconnected. But in truth, you are being recalibrated to the infinite. This is the final surrender, the death of control. The moment where you stop trying to do and start allowing yourself to become. And from that becoming, you access source intelligence. You begin to move not from will, but from knowing. You don't have to force anything anymore, because everything you need begins to find you. This is the Buddha code, the code of pure presence. The chosen ones who emerge from ether are not just leaders. They are living portals. They walk through the world as if the divine breathes through them, because it does. These 5 initiations are not linear. They cycle. They repeat. They deepen. Every time you evolve, you'll revisit them on a higher octave. And each time, more of your true self will be revealed. So if you're in the fire, breathe. If you're in the water, surrender. If you're in the air, speak. If you're in the earth, root. If you're in the ether, trust. Because you are becoming. And what you're becoming is not just another awakened soul. You're becoming a frequency that changes the room simply by entering it. You're becoming a living myth, a walking remembrance, a chosen one, not by title but by embodiment. And now I ask you, what if everything you've ever suffered, everything you've ever lost, everything you've ever feared was not a punishment, but a preparation? What if the pain wasn't proof you were broken, but proof you were being initiated? What if your story is not a tragedy, but a transmission? This is your moment, not to be perfect, but to be present, fully, fiercely, honestly. Because the world doesn't need more performances. It needs presence. It needs you. And you are ready not because you have all the answers, but because you're finally willing to ask the real questions. And maybe, just maybe, this was the question your soul waited lifetimes to hear. Are you willing to become the chosen one you already are? The door is open. The codes are active. The initiations are unfolding. Now walk. Now we enter the aftermath, the moment that comes after the storm, after the fire has burned through the illusion, after the water has washed away the stories, and after the winds have stripped you of your masks, and after the void has whispered to you the truth you were afraid to admit, that you were never meant to be ordinary, that you were never meant to walk the path of the many, that your suffering wasn't random, your pain wasn't punishment, and your longings weren't delusional. They were the signs, the sacred symbols, the callings of a soul that knew too much to fit inside a normal life. And now, with the initiations behind you not as distant memories, but as living codes etched into your body, you are something else entirely. You are not just a seeker anymore. You are not just a student. You are not just awake. You are chosen. And not chosen in the way the world defines it, with titles or accolades or applause. Chosen in the way the universe defines it, quietly, powerfully, irrevocably. Chosen as a frequency. Chosen as a carrier of memory. Chosen as a mirror. Chosen as a divine disruptor. And the question now is not whether you are worthy of this path. The question is, what will you do with the power you now carry? Because the truth is, every chosen one eventually reaches this threshold. The point where the inner work isn't enough anymore. The point where knowing isn't enough. Healing isn't enough. Even awakening isn't enough. The threshold where you must decide whether you will become a living embodiment of the codes you've activated. Whether you will take the raw material of your story and shape it into medicine. Whether you will take the wisdom in your wounds and offer it to the world, not to be praised, but to be used. Because the final stage of the chosen is not ascension. It's responsibility. Not the kind that weighs you down, but the kind that lifts others through your example. The kind that allows your presence to become a permission slip for others to rise. The kind that turns your very existence into a prayer that silently says, "It's okay. You can be who you really are now." And that's the paradox, isn't it? That the chosen ones never feel chosen. Not at first. They feel lost, broken, strange, burdened. They feel too emotional, too sensitive, too intense, too aware. They wonder why they can't just be normal, why they can't just fit in, why their minds and hearts won't stop asking deeper questions. But that discomfort, that sacred discontent, is the signal. It's the call of the ancient within you. The echo of your higher self reminding you that you did not come here to fit in. You came here to recode the field. You came here to become the new myth. And you cannot do that while living by the rules of a dying world. So now let me speak to the part of you that has doubted. The part of you that wondered if this was all in your head. The part of you that wanted proof. The part of you that begged for clarity in the dark. Listen closely. The proof is in your presence. The clarity is in your courage. The validation is in the way your body responds when truth is spoken. You don't need anyone to crown you. The crown is already woven into your field. You don't need a guru. You are remembering that your soul has always been the teacher. And the moment you accept this not as fantasy, but as function, is the moment your entire life will rearrange itself around your frequency. Synchronicities will accelerate. Alignments will increase. People will appear and disappear as if by design. And it won't be magic. It will be physics. Because the chosen ones don't just believe in miracles, they become the environment where miracles occur. But becoming that environment requires radical commitment, not to external outcomes, but to internal alignment. This is where the path gets real. When no one's watching, will you still choose truth? When the world offers comfort in exchange for your authenticity, will you refuse? When the old identity comes knocking, will you open the door, or will you finally say, "That's not who I am anymore"? This is the quiet work, the sacred discipline, the invisible choices that shape destiny. And this is why the chosen ones are rare. Not because they're special, but because they're willing to lose who they were to become who they really are. Willing to be misunderstood. Willing to be alone. Willing to carry the weight of clarity in a world addicted to confusion. And here's the wild truth. Once you accept your role, life stops being random. Everything becomes symbolic. Everything becomes woven. The pain you once cursed becomes sacred training. The people who broke your heart become soul allies who agreed to awaken you. The patterns that haunted you become portals to liberation. You begin to see reality not as something solid, but as something responsive. You realize that your frequency is the remote control, the dial, the script. And if you can hold your frequency steady, if you can root in your truth, no matter the storm, you become unshakable. Not because you are invincible, but because you are anchored. And when you're anchored, you begin to build real things, true things, not just dreams, but structures, relationships, communities, systems, art, teachings, businesses, movements. You become the bridge between the invisible and the visible. You become the vessel through which the unseen becomes seen. And you do it not for yourself, but because you know that your life is not just about you. It's about everyone who will find safety in your embodiment. Everyone who will awaken because you had the courage to stay awake. Everyone who will heal because you stopped apologizing for your power. That is the ripple effect of the chosen. They don't force change. They become it. So now, as we close this sacred transmission, I leave you with one final question. A question not for your mind, but for your soul. A question that only you can answer, not with words, but with how you live from this moment forward. What would it look like to be the version of yourself who fully remembers why you came here? Not someday. Now. Because the truth is, the path of the chosen is not something you walk. It's something you become. With every breath, every choice, every moment you choose alignment over fear. And that path, it's waiting, with your name written in light and shadow. Step forward. You are not becoming the chosen one. You already are. Now show the world what that really means.